detail of this. Holiday pay is currently averaged from a basic wage before time off, but this doesn't include what's earned in overtime or commission. Now, the government estimates that the 30.8 million people in work, of those 1/6 are paid overtime. That means around 5 million workers could be entitled to more holiday pay. Now, many employers aren't happy about this because Brussels introduced employment restrictions on holiday pay in 1998. They're concerned it could leave them liable for billions of pounds in backdated pay.
It's a labyrinth of nonsense that is importing a nightmare for small businesses who are trying to crawl out of recessional environments. All the past employees who have worked for me, a few of them could come back with cap in hand asking you for more money for those in lieu periods of time where they were on holiday. I find that alarming, to say the least.
Well, Paul McFarlane is an employment solicitor at Waitmans. He joins us from our central London studio. Mr. McFarlane, 5 million workers looking back to 1998. These are potentially eye-watering sums we're talking about, aren't they?
Yes, they are. This ruling does have potential implications for most employers who employ people who do overtime. It does have massive ramifications if it goes against the employer. It's not definitive, but it looks like it will go against employers today.
Now, when we talk about people who get overtime, receive overtime, there are lots of people in lots of industries who might possibly do a day here, a day there. Are those the kind of people that will benefit, or is it the kind of people who are employed possibly for just one day but then maybe do 4 days a week overtime?
It's really employees. Any employee who does voluntary overtime, this case will impact on. That's what the case is all about today. If you do voluntary overtime, the tribunal is going to look at whether or not you should be entitled to, when you're calculating your holiday pay, whether or not you should include that overtime payment.
But is voluntary overtime truly voluntary in your experience? A lot of people are on 0 hours contracts. A lot of people perhaps might have a very small part-time salary, but the bulk of their work may well be voluntary overtime, mightn't it?
Yeah, and that's precisely what this case is going to look at, because we've had a couple of cases in the European Court dealing with commission pay, and commission pay as of this May has now been determined to should be included when you're calculating holiday pay. So that's where this case has come about as a result of commission now being included. With the courts are now to look at whether or not overtime should be included.
I mean, in your experience, have employers used overtime and commission as a loophole to avoid paying their workers less? They're not paying their workers less because they're getting the money in their pay packets, but the workers perhaps have fewer rights because they are on paper working fewer days, or they have fewer rights because on paper their basic salary is a lot less.
Not in my experience, no. I mean, I think what employers do is look to see if there's a genuine need for the person, and they employ them on that basis. And if, as and when they need them, they pull them in. So no, I wouldn't agree with that statement.
So then, do you believe that employers who have operated within the law, they've followed the regulations, they've done what they think is right, are going to unnecessarily suffer here? As I say, it's certainly going to have massive ramifications for employers here, because potentially we're looking at claims going back to 1998. That's one of the issues that the tribunal will consider today. It will at least go back to 6 years from today. So it will be one way or the other if the tribunal decides that holiday pay should include overtime payments. But that's the fundamental question today. Does holiday pay include overtime payments? If it decides that, then there will be significant ramifications for employers. Are there any particular industries that you think will be affected most by this, or do you think this affects all industries across the board, anyone essentially who has overtime? Across the board, any employer who employs any of its staff who pay them overtime pay, it will affect them. So I think where it won't affect is the service sectors, for example, the professions where you're not expected to receive overtime payment for working over and above your contractual hours. But excluding that sector, I think it's going to affect every other sector. And what about class actions? We've seen group actions before. You know, you think back to the ladies in Dagenham who were working in the car factory. Do you think we will, in the future, if this does go through at 10:30 this morning, see a lot more group actions potentially? Definitely. I've been advising a few clients where they've received in effect, notices from the trade union that they wish to pursue claims against them. So there's definitely the potential for class actions here.
Okay, Paul McFarlane and Paul McFarlane, thank you very much. And we are going to be debating this in much more detail at 10:30, when we're going to be talking to the institution directors and the unions about how workers are being squeezed, both for overtime and in other ways as well. That's at 10:30 in our debate today.